Hello and welcome to another virtual Virtuoso with the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra. I'm music director and conductor William Introligator, and I'm very delighted to be joined today by one of our two co-principal bassoons, Tom Bittinger. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you, and what a treat it is to get to peek into your workshop there in your music room and your reed making room. Before we get into that, let me just ask a sort of a basic question. How long have you been in the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra?
You should ask. I started in the 85-86 season.
Wow.
So this is my 36th year.
That's incredible. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
And the only way I can remember that is my middle daughter was born during that first season. So that's how I remember her birthday. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so tell us a little bit about your background too. Like, where are you from originally? And if you aren't originally from the Front Range, what brought you there?
Well, I'm mostly from Fort Collins, actually. I was actually born in Ames, Iowa, but I moved to Fort Collins when I was the ripe age of 2 years old. So, because my father was an engineering teacher at the university. And so I grew up here, and I'm kind of boring. I went to school here in Fort Collins, and I taught junior high music here for 31 years.
That's wonderful.
And, so I haven't been away a whole lot. Once upon a time, I thought I should study someplace else, and I went to San Francisco Conservatory for a very short time and left for a few reasons. One, I probably just wasn't ready for it. And two, I was in love with a Colorado girl at the time. And three, my teacher, although he was very wise and an excellent player, Walter Green, the late Walter Green, used to be principal of San Francisco Symphony. He was kind of not what I was used to. And he was kind of one of these overbearing, tear you down and then build you up teachers, and I got to the tear down part and didn't quite get built.
Yeah, but I had my fair share of teachers like that. I know.
And once I got away, I realized I learned a lot, but I had to kind of get away from it. But anyway, that was another lifetime ago. And then I came back and I finished my degree at CSU and got a teaching job here in town, got a master's at CSU, kept teaching, and all the time I was still playing in Fort Collins Symphony, and I was just very lucky. I was just able to do both, and kind of grew up with the symphonies and got better as they got better, and so I was always able to keep both things going. And now that I'm retired from teaching, I'm happy to be able to spend most of my time playing bassoon, so that's great.
So I imagine maybe you've been with the Fort Collins Symphony even longer than you've been with the Cheyenne Symphony.
I have, yeah.
Wonderful. And when you say you got your master's also at CSU, was that in bassoon performance, or was it in music?
It was in education, yeah.
Oh, good.
And it was one of those degrees you get so you can get a raise.
Oh, yeah, right.
But I'm glad I did it.
What were you teaching at the junior high? Was it an orchestra program, a band program, choir, or was it general music?
It was band and orchestra. I started out actually as a string teacher, my first job, and then became a band teacher and spent many, many years doing that. And the end of my career, my last 4 years, I was teaching just strings again, which is what I really liked doing. Although I'm not a string player, I really enjoyed teaching the orchestras.
Yeah.
They're all in the same key. They all use similar techniques.
Yep.
No percussionists. It's great.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. So, and then how and why the bassoon? How did you get started? Was it your first instrument, or did you transfer over from some other earlier instrument?
Well, it was my first desired instrument.
Oh, good.
When I was really young, and a quintet from the high school came to our school, elementary school, and played. I just said, I want to play that. And,
Wonderful. Do you think it was the
and
combination of the sound of it and the look of it, or what do you think it was?
yeah, I think it was the uniqueness of it and the sound, especially.
Ah,
I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen or heard. And so I told them I wanted to play bassoon, and they said, well, we'll start you on clarinet. Okay. So I started on clarinet and bugged my band teacher every day for a couple months, and then got to switch over to bassoon.
oh,
And I
good.
had a,
So you didn't
my,
even play clarinet for a year. It was just a few
no,
months.
it was,
Oh,
yeah, a few months. And I had a great teacher. The orchestra teacher in town at the time, Steve McNeil, who was very well known, and he then went on to teach at CSU a little bit later in his retirement. But he was a bassoonist, and so I took lessons from him, and that was, and then
ah,
from some of the professors at CSU after that. So
yeah. Boy, it makes such a difference to have a really good first teacher, doesn't it?
yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, especially in those like junior high, high school grades and ages
Mhm.
where, it's very easy to be distracted and other things, there are a
Yeah,
lot of,
for sure.
you know. So that's wonderful. I feel like the bassoon is such a great choice for you. And of course I've known you only as a bassoonist, but
Mhm.
it just seems as though you have so many personality qualities that I know from other bassoonists. And so I don't know, there's something about it.
We're
Um,
we're an easygoing lot. We are.
yeah, isn't that true? And usually a very smart lot. And people, often have other interests. They don't mind being the occasional musical goofball, as bassoons are sometimes asked to be.
Right.
And it's really interesting. And that that you've gravitated to it at such a young age already, like the first time you saw it. And I
Mhm.
just love that story. That's great. Well, I want to ask you a little bit more about the room that you're in because it's
Yes.
obviously your bassoon reed making workshop.
Uh-huh.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, I do make my own reeds, but I'm a little bit lazy in that I don't make them from the tubes,
Sure.
from the raw cane like this, which is what they come from, of course. Um, I don't have all the tools and equipment needed to process that.
Yeah.
And so I start, let's see if I have one. I start with what we call gouge shape and profile pieces.
Ah,
And, and
yeah.
then these we fold in half and form wires on them so that they're round at the end, and then they're of course closed at the end until we cut the tip off. I don't know if
Yeah.
people can see that or not. And then so I do that, and then I tie some string on it to make it look pretty. Actually, the purpose of the string is it seals the end, and there's many other ways to do that. Some people use glue or heat shrinkable tubing or various things. But it also gives you something to hold on to when you put the reed on.
Yeah.
And it makes the center of gravity closer to this end. So if you happen to drop your reed, it'll hit on that end and not the tip and break it.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So we do
And
that, and then
also the fact that different colors, you can organize your reeds better that way.
I
Um,
could if I was an organized person, but
yeah.
yeah. And it does help me remember which batch is which, and how
Right.
the age of them and what I've done to them, because I kind of have a process where I make about 10, and then I do one thing to them, wait a day, and then do the next step and wait a day and do the
Mhm.
next step. So,
Now, have you changed very much over the years and decades of playing in terms of the specific gouge and shape that you buy the cane in originally?
I have changed a few times. I'm kind of settled on one I like now for the last probably 15 years at least.
Yeah,
Because when you change, then you kind of have to relearn from some things.
yeah.
But I do like that. But I still learn different things to do along the way and try them. And um, uh, just recently read a book, or more of a pamphlet, a short book by Mordecai Reckman, a bassoonist who has what he calls my way of making the reeds, and tried that for a while. Um,
That's
Didn't
good.
really like it, but I
Okay.
changed for a little bit, and then I went back to the way I like it to
Well,
be.
and I guess doing that
But
process probably just confirms what you do like about your own reads, which is
yeah,
it's a very personal thing anyway.
mhm,
You know, it
right.
helps determine the whole sound that you get, and it's a very, as musicians, we have our own distinctive sound in our ears and
Hmm.
the sound that we create, and then there's the whole issue of the physicality of how it feels.
Right.
And different bassoonists, I'm sure, use different amount of lip pressure and other things like that, and all of the customizations that you do to the wood of the reed with
Hmm.
your knives and everything, I'm sure reflect that. And of course, I'm speaking as an oboist, so I kind of know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very similar. Oboists just have to work a lot harder than we do.
The reeds are smaller and therefore more delicate. That's true.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Much more sensitive.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the first musical selection that you're going to share with us. I'm so
Okay.
excited to hear this. All of these pieces that you're playing for us, I can't wait to hear them. So tell us about the first.
Okay, the first one is the Bourrée from the Third Cello Suite by Bach, and I've been playing cello suites, working on them just as exercises, and since I was in high school, really, and they're just great. I'm sure all instruments play them. Now, my wife is a cellist, and so
Oh.
I had to get special permission to perform. But she said it was fine, and there's a second cello part that I found um, by Daniel Morgenstern, and he wrote second cello parts for the first three cello suites, and primarily for teachers to play along with their students. And it just kind of provides a harmony and a basis for what would ordinarily be just a solo line. So I thought it'd be great to use that. And so I recorded um, both the regular solo cello part and the second cello part as well. And so you'll see it as a split screen thing
That's so
when I
exciting.
recorded it.
Which did you record first?
I recorded actually the solo part first,
Sure.
so that I could make my accompanist follow me.
So then when you were doing the accompanying line, you had earbuds or headphones or
Yeah,
something?
right. So I was listening and played along with it.
Yeah. I experimented with a little bit of that recently. I recorded an easy piano part to a few holiday things, and then played oboe over it. And I have to say, I thought it would be easier to do it. I had seen so many people do that ever since the onset of COVID.
Yeah,
And I thought I need to figure this out, and so I thought I would accompany myself on some easy oboe piano things. And the technological side of it really got to me. In the
mhm.
end, I ended up not being able to show the split screen,
Okay.
and it's too bad. But I admire anybody who can do it, and so I'm excited that you have done it. Is this one of your first outings in that split screen self accompanied?
Um, I did a thing a couple of years ago.
Oh.
Um, the Four Column Symphony did Bugler's Holiday with bassoons.
Oh, what a great idea.
And so I made this recording, and it's out there on the internet. It's been shared a lot of me playing all three parts in different costumes
Wow.
of that, and just kind of put it out there as a promotion for the concert. So
I
so
love that
that's so
idea.
that was my first experiment with this type of thing. So
Fascinating. Wow. So you were
yeah,
definitely ahead of the curve in terms of, well, there are a lot of people who have just tried it since COVID.
yeah.
That's great that you had that
There's
experience.
some great recordings out there of people
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, very good.
It's wonderful that you've chosen part of the Bach cello suites. So many of our Cheyenne Symphony musicians have chosen them. And so we've heard them on cello, we've heard them on French horn, we've heard them on so many other instruments from your colleagues in the Cheyenne Symphony.
Right.
And it just really attests to the universality, the artistry, just the incredible nature of this sublime music.
Yes, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go into it?
Um, I think not. I just thought it was a great fun project for me to do, and I hope everybody enjoys listening to it.
I'm sure we will. So here is Tom Bittinger and Tom Bittinger performing the cello, the bourrée from the third suite, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the G major suite.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Enjoy.
All right.
Bravo, Tom. Wonderful. I
Thank you.
actually can't wait to hear the Bach. And I want to, right off the bat, apologize for getting the key wrong. Of course, the third suite is in C, isn't it?
C major. Yeah.
That's right. And that bourrée, wonderful to hear it on basically two bassoons. That's great. Speaking of your instrument itself, maybe do you have any story about the actual bassoon that you play?
I do. Well, this is this is a Heckel bassoon made by the Heckel company in Bieber, Germany, which is pretty much been the gold standard of bassoons for 150 years. Um, Now, of course, there's many other manufacturers that make high quality professional instruments, but for many years it was the one you had to have. And so I feel very lucky to have this. And in fact, when I was my short tenure in San Francisco studying with Walter Green, um, the first lesson I remember, he looked at the bassoon I had, which was the one I had in high school, and kind of scoffed and said, oh, you realize, of course, if you ever want to be serious about this, you're going to have a Heckle. So I'm like, okay. And my phone just heard me say that. And anyway, so that was that. And so I obviously didn't have a Heckle or the money to get Heckle. But after I went back to Colorado and I was going to school at CSU, I had a good friend who played French horn named Randy. And someone called Randy one day and said, I wonder if I could get some French horn lessons. And in their conversations, the man that had called him had mentioned that, well, when I was in high school, I used to play the bassoon. And in fact, my parents bought me a really nice instrument when I was in high school, but it's just been sitting in the closet ever since. And you wouldn't know anyone that wants to buy a Heckel bassoon, would you?
Wow.
And Randy hung up from him and called me and said, hey, I heard about a guy that wants to sell his Heckel. So I called him and I go out and meet him and try his instrument. He let me take it for a day and play on it and everything. And I tried not to act too excited. And so I asked him how much he wanted for it. And he said, well, my parents, when I was in high school, I think they paid $2,000 for it. And I think they've gone up a little bit. So maybe 2,300. And I tried to not look excited and I took it 2,300. And I was a poor college kid and it was in the 70s. So there was still a lot of money.
Yeah.
But with the help of my parents, I did it. And that was, let me just say, that was just a fraction of what it was worth, just a fraction of what it was worth in those days. And nowadays it's worth maybe 20 times that. So,
wow, really? I didn't know bassoons could actually get that expensive. That's amazing.
Yeah, a good bassoon nowadays is like buying a mid-price, a good, like a brand new Honda Accord or something. You know?
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And if you buy a Heckel nowadays, there's, I think, a 5-year waiting list once you sign up with the company to get a new one. Although there are many good used ones out there. So anyway, that's the story of this. But also the coolest part is when I looked up and researched the serial number as to when it had been made and delivered and anything, it was delivered to the original owner. That's the guy I bought it from, the original owner. It was delivered to him in June of 1955, which is exactly the same month and year that I was delivered as a baby.
Oh, that's amazing. So you and your bassoon were born
at the same time. Together.
That's amazing. That means you probably share the same horoscope as your
yes, right.
Your astrological charts are linked.
That's right.
That's amazing. There aren't too many of our Cheyenne Symphony musicians who can say, my instrument and I were born in the same month, the same year.
Yeah. Now, I had this refurbished about 3 years ago, so it looks a little better than I do. I have after all these years. So, but.
Come on, don't sell yourself short, Tom. You're doing great. That's amazing. I like that story. That is so cool, and it's also nice because it was a win-win. The other guy was happy with the money exchange.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wow, that's amazing. That did remind me of a story when my parents, when I was getting very serious with the oboe in high school, my parents bought me a brand new Lore, which is sort of like an equivalent for the oboe world. And this was before things changed quite dramatically with the franc in France, where Lorets are made, and of course, long before the euro. And so as it turned out that at the time it seemed like a lot of money, but it was like maybe $1,600, I think, or 1650. So, but compared to what they are now, years later, I told my dad about how the value of the instrument has actually gone up, and how nowadays, if we were to try to buy a new one, it would be like double that at least. And he said, "Oh, we should have bought a dozen."
Yeah, like it's that easy. Really, it actually, it would be a great investment if you could have done such a
I
thing.
know, right? Oh,
Right.
that is a great story. Wow. So now tell us a little bit about the next piece we're going to hear. I understand that it's very different from Bach. I think we're fast forwarding
Yeah.
a few hundred years. Tell us about
Well, I'm doing an arrangement of Gershwin's Summertime from Porgy and Bess.
it. Right.
I get kind of tired of these dry, cold winds in Cheyenne and Fort Collins this time of year, and I want to think of summertime. This was arranged for bassoon and piano,
Oh,
and I took the piano part and broke that down into just a single bassoon line. So there's a second bassoon part on this one as well. So I'm also doing two parts on this one. Um, so I'll do the second bassoon part, which comes from the piano part, and then the solo part of the Summertime melody. This it kind of explores the high range of the bassoon a little bit more than, well, definitely more than the first one. Um, so more up in that stratosphere level. There's even a quote from the famous Stravinsky bassoon quote of the piece that we should have been playing this month, but we aren't. But I understand we're going to do it next year, so that's good. So there is a Rite of Spring quote in the middle of that to listen for. It goes through the theme twice, and then the third time is a quasi jazz improvisation sort of thing on that theme, and then it changes key and settles down in a soft version of the theme again at the end. So that's what happens in Summertime.
That's fantastic. The only thing we're missing is autumn, because we're in the middle of winter and you're playing Summertime by Gershwin that has a quote from the Rite of Spring. So the only thing
That's
is
right.
the only thing we're missing is autumn. But this sounds so exciting. I can't wait to hear this rendition. So this is Gershwin's Summertime from Porgy and Bess, arranged for bassoon, originally a bassoon and piano, and arranged by Tom for bassoon and bassoon. I'm excited. Enjoy, everyone. Bravo again, Tom.
Thank you.
Everybody loves Gershwin, and it's nice to hear "Summertime" in the middle of winter. It really is.
Yes.
I can already tell that the days are getting longer. Can you? It's
I
nice.
can. I
Yeah,
can. It's a bright sunny day here today, and so it's nice. Yeah.
that's great. Well, this third piece that you have for us is not just a duet. Tell us about it.
Well, this is a really fun piece, and it's a humorous scherzo by Prokofiev, and one of my favorite composers.
Wow,
And it's just I've actually never played this piece before now, and I just thought, what a great idea to do this. I've been in bassoon quartets, but we've never done this. And he wrote it. I've just learned in 1912. And it was originally a piano piece, but he rewrote it for 4 bassoons. I don't know. He must have had some bassoon friends that asked him to do it, or so I can't imagine why he would do that otherwise. But I'm glad he did. It's a funny kind of comical piece that reinforces the bassoon stereotype of the clown, the orchestra. Not very long, just a couple minutes long. Um, Lots of bouncing around in the low part, and then the melody parts echo between the top 2 parts, and then there's a lyrical middle section, short lyrical middle section, and then it goes back into the theme again, and finishes up. It's a lot of fun, and it was a fun thing to produce. I did all 4 parts, so I actually recorded a metronome track so I could listen to that while I did the bass part, the 4th part first, and then listening to the 4th part, I did the 1st part, and then listening to those 2 parts, I did the 2nd part.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
saved the 3rd part for last because it's the hardest.
Really?
It's mostly offbeats. Yeah, 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 yeah. And so it was devilish to get that together, but it worked. I mean, I have to work with these other bassoonists that they don't always keep a steady beat, if you know what I mean. So, but
This is starting to sound like the many faces of Eve, or one of those things about schizophrenia or something.
and I have to tell you that my basset hound Jasper made a cameo appearance also during this. So
Oh, I can't wait to
you have
see
to, have to watch carefully for him.
How fascinating. I mean, that must have been hard to do all these different layers, and listening to them. And I mean, how did you even get it so that you could hear 2 other parts when you were recording the third part, and three other parts when you recorded the fourth? How did you?
Yeah. Well, there's an app for that. I use an app that's
Hmm,
made for multiple videos. And so
sure.
I was able to record on top of the others while listening to the previous ones. So
Yeah. Gosh, I'm fascinated. I don't know this piece. From your description, it sounds quintessentially Prokofiev
mhm.
because it has the driving motor rhythms, like you described in the fourth bassoon part. It has, those frequent like rhythmic interest, like the third part with the offbeats, and then beautiful,
Yeah.
soaring melodies, and
Hmm.
sounds very much like what we know and love about Prokofiev.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else that you want to share before we go into it?
No, just enjoy. I had fun doing it, and I really think it's something people will like to hear. So,
Thank you, Tom. Here is Prokofiev's, what is it called? Humoresque scherzo?
yeah, humorous scherzo
Wonderful.
or
In,
funny joke.
yeah, that's right. Fantastic. Bravo again, Tom.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
haven't heard it yet, but I can't wait to hear it on the
Mhm.
actual broadcast. What a special treat this has been to hear you perform, to hear, many layers of your performance at one time, and to get to know you better, especially too, to see you in your home and in your teaching and workspace there. This has been a real pleasure, Tom. Thank you so much. And thank you for
Thank
being
you. It's been my pleasure too. Yeah.
good. I feel like you're such a huge part of the symphony. Um, we are so lucky to have outstanding musicians in the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra, and we can't thank you enough. Somebody who's put over 35 years into the orchestra, or that thereabouts. That's amazing. That really
Well,
is.
it's a joy. I've always been excited to play in Cheyenne. It's just I always love to make that 45-minute trip up north and meet all my colleagues and great music directors. You're my fifth one, and maybe
Wow.
my last one. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't know about that.
But I'm very grateful during these COVID times that the symphony has kept going and really really worked hard to make sure that we can still play, and that's important.
Yeah, boy, I want to echo that too. I'm very grateful to our staff. I'm very grateful to our board. I'm very grateful to the Civic Center staff. Those people really put a
Yes.
lot of time and effort and thought and really, careful, preparation into making it safe for us to perform when a lot of other orchestras weren't. And
Mm-hmm.
we're a little heartbroken about having to cancel the holiday concert. Um, but everything is looking good for our upcoming performance.
Yes, I was pleased to see that that's still going. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes. And yeah, so we still have great things planned for the rest of this season, and next season is going to be wonderful too.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you
it's
for
great
being
talking to you. Thanks.
great talking to you too, Tom. Have a great rest of the day and evening, and thank you so much for sharing your virtuosity and your stories with us and everything.
Thanks. All right. See ya.
And thank you all for tuning in again to another virtual virtuoso. We'll see you next time.